everybody, it's Angel from Halo Inspirations. We give you inspirations to help you spread beauty and joy through your quilting journey. Happy Wednesday to you all, and thank you so much for stopping by. This week, we are quilting our springtime placemats. I'm excited. Love quilting. So before we get started, what kind of things are you going to need? Hopefully you got your placemats basted together and ready to go to quilt. If you have the pattern and you're following along, you're going to want to get out your quilting diagrams inside the pattern, okay? And what other things? Well, you're going to need thread. Now I'm using Aurifil 50 weight thread. It is actually 2310, which is a light beige in color. I use this for everything. I love Aurifil 50 weight. I love 50 weight. It's strong enough, it's clean enough, and it looks beautiful. And it just really works well with fabric. So I'm using that. And if you used a different color to piece than you are with your quilting thread, I just want to remind you to make sure you have a bobbin and you put your new bobbin in of the same color. Just a little reminder. And then for this placemat, I solely used painter's tape. I can't sew straight line. I swear to you, I don't know what it is. It's a mental block up here. So I used painter tape, and to get that grid just right, I used a lot of it. Several areas. I reused pieces, but I used it all over. So this was my absolute marking tool. And you might need a ruler. I know you're going to need a ruler for not a very big one. Okay, I'm using a 6.5 square, but I am going to use it. So if you're following along, you'll see why, but we're going to need that ruler. And I also used chalk to do a little bit of marking on this one. If you want to use another type of marking utensil that you have, just make sure that you test it, that it will come off of because we're putting it on the top. So you're going to want to make sure that it comes out and that it won't come back or bleed or do something crazy. You want to test that. I am using white chalk and it just rubs off. So we're good with that. You're also going to need a walking foot if you have it. I've been told that you can do this with a general presser foot or even your 1/4 inch pressing foot, but I haven't tried that, so I can't tell you for sure. I really enjoy doing straight line quilting on my domestic with my walking foot because of all the layers, and it really helps to get through those layers. Needle. One question people always tend to ask is what I'm using for needle. I am using a 90-14. That's my preference. It works well in my quilting. The only time I ever switch is with t-shirt quilts. So I am using a 90-14, but I do know some people like using a 12. So it's just really how well your stitches are coming out for you, how well you're working with it, well your thread with your machine and your thread and that needle all work together. But I am using a 90-14, just so you know. As far as quilting gloves go, I have talked about quilting gloves before, and I do use them a lot. But I got to tell you, with all the taping and untaping, I started off using them, but it was just so much chaos. Taking them off, taking the tape off, realigning a new piece of tape, putting the gloves back on. It just became too much, so I ended up not using them. So just an FYI, they're very good about helping you grip that fabric and allowing you control. But I was struggling with the tape thing, and it became a little crazy. So I didn't use them. You won't see me use them on these ones either. And of course you need your sewing machine, and you need to make sure you get your foot on. If you're changing your foot, make sure again that you put that correct color bobbin thread in your bobbin. Get her all situated and ready to go, and we're going to go ahead and get this started. So first I'm going to pull you in closer to my sewing table. We are going to do this one first. This is the one where I did a grid slash crosshatch, okay, depending on how you want to look at that. So I did do it on that one. That's what we're going to start with, but I want to show you some things. I'm not going to have you watch me quilt the whole thing. Y'all will be here all day. So we're just going to do a little bit of quilting with it, but I want to show you how I utilize that tape. And you could do the same thing with a marking pen, or you know, something that you use to mark with, if that is your choice, and it works great with your fabric. So let's go ahead and pull into the sewing table. I'm going to get this ready off camera, but we're going to come on in the next time you see me, and we're going to talk a little bit, and then we're going to go ahead and get that quilting started. Can't wait for this. I hope you are excited as I am. I love quilting. So, see you in a second. Okay, so like I said, we're going to start with this one first. One thing I want to mention is this is actually a 1/2 inch longer and wider, because we still on each block have one side exposed. Okay, so it's a 1/4 inch along here, and a 1/4 inch along here, and a 1/4 inch along here, and a quarter, about, you know, if everything was perfectly squared, that's what it would equal. At the end, we're going to cut part of that off. When you quilt, it sometimes pulls some of that fabric in, so you don't want to cut it now. Plus you need the ends to manipulate the top, okay? But if you really wanted to be picky about where that line is going to go, you could take your small ruler, and where this is supposed to be a finished block, line up that seam, make sure your seams are lined up, and then go ahead with your marking tool, even tape would work, and get that edge, and that's where you could actually use as your corners, okay? I didn't do that with the first one, so I'm not going to do that with this one. I want them to look similar so that it looks like everything's on purpose. But I wanted to let you know that you could, in fact, really get more detail oriented with it. It's just a placemat. I'm looking at using it and washing it, and you know, having a little, spreading a little beauty and joy on the table, so I'm good with it. So on this one, we're actually doing a crosshatch or grid, okay? And in good quilting etiquette, when you go to quilt, you want to start in the middle and work out. You don't want to start on the outside and work in, because it may create puckers and other issues, and that it'll drive you nuts. Lots of bats. So we are going to start in the middle, and that's about this line here, okay? And then we're going to work out. We're going to work out, and then when we switch directions, we'll start in the middle again and work out, and then work out from there. So first line, if you look at this map, we're going to go from this corner to this corner, and then to this corner, and then to the end. And like I said, I do use painter's tape. So this will be the longest piece you'll have. And the first thing you want to do is just get a rough estimate on a good sized piece of tape that's going to be bigger than what you need or where you're stitching. This will be the biggest piece that you use, okay? And then, because I'm going that direction, I'm going to place it on the other side. So whenever you line up your tape, do not actually put it on the corner, because your needle needs to go there. And if you cover that corner, then you won't be able to stitch on it, okay? So this painter's tape is just used as a guide. Oop, get that. Now what'll happen, because we are using it as a guide, it just so happens that my tape is exactly the place that is exactly the enough width. Okay, so I'm going to sew down here, and then when I get down here, I'm going to cut threads because I don't want to sew over my tape. Can you even see that? Yes, okay. I'm going to cut threads down here, but then I'm going to jump And I'm going to go ahead and sew the other direction up this line. Okay? And like I said, this is just a guide. So don't cover those corners. There we go. Give it a nice press. So I'm going to take you to my sewing machine. I'm going to actually demonstrate sewing down this line, cutting thread, turning it around, and doing the other one. And we'll go to the next step after that. I'm not going to do the whole entire quilt, but I want to make sure that I'm giving enough instruction that you understand what I'm doing. So I'll see you in just a second at the sewing machine. Okay, so here we are at the sewing machine. And as you notice, I'm going to go ahead and put my foot down here so it holds it. And I'm going to go ahead and put my needle down. So we have some extra placemat or topper over here. I'm just going to make sure that it stays flat. Now also notice I don't have on my gloves, and that's because once we get through this tape, I'm going to have to take the gloves off and really work with the tape, and having those gloves on is an absolute mess. And because this is a complete grid where we're moving different tapes, it just becomes really a big havoc. But you're going to want to make sure that you get your placemat flat and you have a lot of control. So we're going to go ahead and do this. And I'm using this guide here. I'm lining up next to it, and I'm going to attempt, you know, we don't have to be perfect. Perfect is not as good as done. So we're going to line along here and try to stitch next to this piece of tape before we turn around. Now when you get up to the corner here, if you heard that, that's because of all those seams. That's what happens. So it's awesome if you can get those seams to lie flat for just that purpose. I'm not going to lie to you, this is actually harder than it looks to do this while on camera. And once I reach the end, I'm going to go ahead and cut threads. I know I should probably be sewing faster, but I want some level of control, and I feel that I have more control when I'm slower. Okay, now I'm in the batting. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my thread, lift my presser foot, take a look at these stitches. They're going to work. Nothing was off, because sometimes you can have your bobbin loaded wrong, or your tension is off. So I'm going to turn this around. Get this lined up. Put my needle down in the batting. Put my presser foot down. And go ahead and get this stitch done. Now this walking foot has its own teeth, but also notice this little arm right here. This, if you notice, the teeth go up and down as the needle bar goes up and down. Okay, so make sure if you have one of these that it's sitting where it needs to, or your stitches won't be right. And you notice that I keep moving. I walk my hands. The whole idea is that we're keeping that area as flat as possible. Now your gloves, if you're using quilting gloves, they will really help to stabilize your fabric and have a lot of control. Getting close. One other thing, don't be looking at the needle. Try and look ahead of the needle. It'll help keep that straight. I'm in the batting again, so I'm going to go ahead and cut threads. And before I do anything, I'm looking at these stitches. They actually look really good. All right, I'm going to pull you out and we're going to do another piece of tape and we'll go from there. Okay, so here we are again. I've sewn on this end and I've sewn on this end, which is this line and this line. Okay, so I'm simply going to pull this off. You want to take another piece of tape and you want to line it up to the next line. And I'll go over that in just a second. I'm just trying to get it lined up. Okay. So when looking at this, we have sewn this, this line, and we have sewn this line. So now I'm going to sew this line, okay? And I've lined it up along the line, the stitch I already did, okay? So we're already taking care, that one's already taken care of, but I wanted to line it up so they have some kind of equality, to include being able to line up these corners. And remember, don't put your tape on the corner because you need your needle to go there. You want to make sure that you have this straight line that's going to go along there. When that's done, you do the next strip. And your tape is going to get smaller and smaller, but don't throw those pieces away because we're going to be able to reuse them, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and get all of the rest. I'm going to go each line, I'm going to sew out, and then I'm going to go ahead off camera and I'm going to do each line on this side. And when we start the next set to get the grid, I'll pull you back in. So I'll see y'all in a little bit. Okay, so I got all my lines done. And now we're going to switch directions. So we want to sew about the middle of our quilt, going the opposite direction. So I am actually sewing this line right here. And then I will accentuate this way and then that way. So I've already got it lined up. I'm ready to sew. And what you want to pay attention to is that your points are going to line up. That'll help make your quilting equal. Okay? So I've already done that. Everything's lined up. And now I'm just going to sew that line, move the tape, and just continue this direction right here. And then I'm going to continue that direction and the quilting will be done. I'm going to do that off camera and then we're going to start with the next one. See you in a little bit. Okay, so I have my first placemat finished. The cross hatching or the grid is done. And the next step is ready. So we're going to talk about the other placemat. Okay, and if you notice, we have 9 patches, we have 4 patches. Okay. And if you also notice, the middle of the 4 patches does not line up with the seams on the 9 patch. And I also quilted it different. So inside the 9 patches, I did a grid. Inside the 4 patches, I did diamonds. Okay? So it's important that we find these middles. And if you look at the quilting diagram that I created, I have these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. And they have different colors. Okay. So if we were going to start with 1, it would be blue, and you follow the blue line with the arrows, and when you come off of it, you cut threads. We go to black 2, come back in here, follow the black line in this block, it'll end up over here, cut threads. Come back up to red 3, follow the red line, and it'll end here, which is just 1 block worth to 4. So instead of cutting threads, I'm just going to travel along here. I'm going to dip back in. Now this yellow 4, that yellow line, goes to the very next block. And you just continuously follow. Now on the next block, you'll see these little turns with the color. That tells you where you need to go next, because it gets a little bit confusing with all of the lines. So that's what that is. It's a guide to tell you, okay, so you come down here, this has a little yellow turn, so you're going to make that turn. This one has a yellow turn, so you're going to make that turn. And you're just going to keep on following. Now, every single stitch ends outside, so you can cut threads and you don't have to worry about burying them inside the quilt. The 4 patches are their own entity, okay? So we would start here. We're going to come down here. We're going to follow that turn, follow the turn, and this way you'll end up outside with 1 stitch. And I'm sorry, you would not end there. You're going to come one more time and make that turn. You're going to end up where you start every time. You're going to start on this one and you're going to end on that. But you're going to cut your thread down here, okay? However, in lieu of proper quilting etiquette, I'm going to start with 9. This is a middle. I'm going to go ahead and get this done. And then I'm going to jump back over to 1 and do all the quilting and finish with 10 and 11, okay? So how do we find these middles? Because the middle of this block does not line up with that 9-patch seam. So you can't sew to that 9-patch seam. This 9, it'll be off. And then there isn't even a 9-patch seam here. So what do? This is where your ruler and my chalk, that's my preference, is coming into play, okay? What I'm going to do, and what I am doing, is I'm going to line up this bottom on the 6. This one right here is on the 3. They finish at 3 inches. The middle between 3 and 6 is 4.5. So I make a line. I'm going to do the exact same thing, although I'm not going to move the ruler like I just did. Okay. So we have 3 inches. Now you're going to notice some extra up here. That's that 1/4 inch that will come off when we cut it. Okay. But the difference between 3 and 0 is 1.5. So I'm going to put a little mark, which is right on white. You got to love that. On that 1.5 mark. Okay, so I have one at 4.5 and I have one at 1.5. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And wherever that lines up, I'm gonna make sure it's straight across, and I'll put a little mark on the black. I'll do it again down here, and I'll put a little mark. I'm gonna do it on the red because red shows up better than the light green for my white, and that's where my points will be. So as I'm sewing along, oh, I did forget one, didn't I? All right. So we go there. We have 3, if we did 3 inches, 1.5 would be the mark. Now, it won't show up on white, so I'm going to put it there. Okay. Same thing over here. I'll line it up, and I'll put the line on the black on this side for 1.5. And every time I go to sew, I have a point to match with. So you'll need to do a point. You'll need to do each side. Same thing with the bottom of this. So we have 3 inches on top, line up your seam 3 inches across, 1.5 is the middle. Okay, that gives you your 4 points. You're going to need one on all the squares. So you have to do that for each square. You'll need to mark the center. Somehow, some way, even if you use painter's tape, you can lay painter's tape down here. And that'll just tell you where you need to go for those points. Okay, so I'm going to get that done for the first 4 patch, and I'm going to take you in and show you that first. I'm going to sew 9 with you, okay, and I'll stop here, cut threads, and then I'm going to follow my blue and get her done. And that's all you have to do. So once you get through all the way to 7 and 8, if you've done 9 first like I did, you'll go to 10 and 11, and you have to mark those centers just like you did for the first 4 patch. Okay, so I'll see you in a bit because I'm going to get everything marked up and we'll get this sewn. Okay, so I've marked all of my squares. Okay, let's see, there we go. And I've actually put a little piece of tape to help get me started. You don't have to do that, but I've got every point marked that I need to, and I actually used a purple marking pen on the edge there of the white because white wouldn't show up on white, and I could have even done it in the batting, but that is an area that's going to be cut off and you're not going to see it, so it's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get this lined up underneath, and yay, my thread came unthreaded from my needle. Okay. Get that situated. And I do have my pattern sitting next to me, so I make sure that I'm following it so that way I don't have to remember which way to go. So you're going to see me stop on the corners or on the points, because I'll need to look to see where exactly it is that I'm going to stop or turn. So in the meantime, I'm going to go to here. Now you don't have to do tape, and I may not for the rest of this. We'll see. Straight lines are hard for me, but might help if I put the presser foot down. Now we don't want to go into the blue. Needle down function is really helpful here because the next spot I need to go is over here. So I'm going to lift my presser foot and I'm going to turn it. Look, I'm so anxious about having tape. So I'm going to actually put the tape down. There we go. It's such a crutch. You don't have to do that. It's just, and if you saw, I was a little bit off, so it'd have been a little bit crazy, but I'm going to this point next, okay? Now remember, I don't want to go into the green, so when I get close, I'm going to slow it down. All right, lift that presser foot, pull off the tape. Now this time I want to come over here. And we don't want to go into the blue. So when we get close, we want to slow it down. Okay, put the presser foot down. See how nice that, yeah, it's not lined up straight. Oh boy. So, just want to get to the next line. When you get close, don't go into the blue. The blue's a different pattern. Okay. Needle foot stays down. Our next spot is over here. So I'm going to turn it again. And like I said, I'm following my pattern that I have already done. That way it's not something I have to think about. All I gotta do is follow the thing. You gotta love it. All right, now look, see, I wasn't quite straight. So even if it just helps get my angle correct, there we go. Now, this time we are going to turn the fabric because I want to come over here. Whoop, I'm going a little too far. Just looking at the pattern, making sure I'm following it correctly. Get a nice straight line. Okay. Lift that presser foot, pull out that tape. Yep. Making sure it's what the hesitation is. I'm just following the pattern. Now this time you know that you want to match that corner as best as you can. And if you just want to follow with your needle and your eyeballs, that's all you need to do. I just have a crutch. Now it's not completely on. I just want to be able to line it up. We're going to come back. We want to end right where we started. Okay. So now the next spot is over here. All right. Get it lined up. All right. Go ahead and, whoop, is that really that straight? It sure is. Okay. Get it in there. Don't go quite to the white because then you want some kind of a marking point or a point to stop at. We're going to go over here next. So we're going to turn it. Oop, that didn't sound good. Actually changed the stitch. Remember I was talking about sometimes you hit buttons and if you don't realize it, that could be disastrous. So put that presser foot down, go to the next point, sorry about the dogs, guys. All right, the next one, we're going to go back over to where we hit the point in the green. Now remember, there is a quilting diagram for this because I'm switching and turning this fabric like crazy. There is no absolute way, I'm sure, without really breaking it down, where you would end up and which way to go. So it's in the quilting diagram that's in the pattern, which way it is that you need to go to get this done. All right, so we're going to the green. Now there's already a sewn line there. Make sure I got on it. I sure did. The next one we're going to go up here. So I got to turn it this way. Basically, I'm just using this tape to give me a good straight line angle, you know, get me going, basically. Yeah, I got a little close because I know I need to hit that mark and I don't want it on the blue. All right, next one is over here, so I'm going to turn it again. Whoop, might help if I had my presser foot up. I'll probably show this in out, you know, a little further out so you can see I'm turning the fabric. I mean, this is pretty up close. I just wanted to give you this as an example. So I'm just lining up a good straight angle, but this is my next mark. All right. Don't hit into the blue. Keep that needle down, but lift that foot. Now I'm coming back. Now look, I didn't actually hit right as close as I needed to. It's a little harder when you're doing this through a camera. So we're just going to, I'm just going to meet that same point so it doesn't, it looks like it's on purpose, but you want to get as close as possible. The other ones look really good. That one, not so much, but that's okay. So I'm going to try to hit that point right there, okay? And the white square is the last one. I'm going to come over here. Give me a good angle. Okay. Now we have a few more stitches to do. I want to come to this angle right, or that point right there. So I'm going to give myself a nice angle to line it up on. Lower the foot. Ooh, it's starting to fade because it's a erasable marker. I just want to make sure I have the right. Ooh, I went into the blue. Did y'all see that? So now you can even go a little bit over if you want, but we're going to turn it. I want to go to this point. I'm going to turn it again. Like I said, you can eyeball this. I'm not a good eyeballer. We want to hit that point. Okay. Turn it again. And we got one left, and we're starting where we're finishing where we started. Okay. So I want to try as best I can to hit that point. That's the point I want to try and hit, okay? Giving myself a nice angle. And I'm actually, when I'm sewing, the best thing to do is look to where you want to sew to. It's not too far away and you can see it. That's what you want to try to do. Now, I've ended up outside my batting. Now I'm going to cut. Okay, and then, again, I got them all done. That was 9. Okay, now I'm going to go, and I'm going to start with 1, but I'm going to pull you out so you can see how I turn the fabric at the same time. But I'm going to follow the 1, so that blue line is where I'm going to follow, and I'm going to start on the 1, and I'm going to end over here. Okay, so I'll see you in a second. All right, so here I am at the sewing machine. I do have my pattern so I can follow along. I put a little piece of tape on this first stitch just for a guideline. Y'all saw it. It's just a guideline. You don't have to be perfect, but according to, I'm just following my quilting diagram to get this best way done. I'm just going to do the number 1 with you. So this is the number 1 on the quilting diagram. And Remember, you don't want to go into the next color. Needle is down. I'm going to go ahead and lift my presser foot, pull my piece of tape off. I'm going to check where I'm supposed to go next. My hair is everywhere. I don't know about y'all, but I lose more hair than anybody. Okay, so I'm going to line this up just as a good guidance. I ain't going to be specific about it. And if you saw, I had to turn my fabric a little bit. I'm going to put that presser foot down. I'm going to sew to the next corner. Now, if you don't need that tape and you can sew with eyeballs, you go with yourself. I know lots of people that can. It's just not something I'm really good at. So, pull that. I lifted up my presser foot. I'm going to do the next one, following along that pattern. Get an angle going. Now notice I didn't cut threads. I'm not cutting threads until I'm out. That's the whole point of this diagram. All right, where am I going next? So I checked my pattern. I'm just following the number 1 blue line. So if you have the pattern, you can see what I'm talking about. All right. All right, put my presser foot down. I'm going to make sure that all this extra fabric is out of the way and I'm keeping it flat, okay? I wish I could use my quilting gloves, but that tape is just an absolute mess with tape. Lift my presser foot. And sometimes I have to change the paper to see the same way that I am, and this is one of those times. So I'm going to get this under control. I think we're going to turn it upside just like I would. So I have ended here. I'm going to go, okay, yep, this is the direction I want to go. Get that lined up. Gives me a nice angle to work with. Now all of this is out of the way. I put my presser foot down. I'm going to go ahead and sew. Okay, and the last one for number 1, blue number 1, I'm going to turn it again. My needle down function is an angel because it keeps my needle in the same spot and allows me to turn that fabric so that I can get started as I left the same spot without having to adjust. Now, if you don't have one, you're just going to have to be cognitive of that. Ooh, this angle, I don't have it right. Okay. All right, here we go. Last one for number 1. I'm now in the batting. Now, I have ended on number 1 on the outside of my batting, but I'm noticing the number 2 is just a block over to start. So I'm actually going to turn my fabric and I'm just going to sew outside on the batting. It'll be cut off. It's not a big deal. You don't have to do this. You could have cut threads. Get it kind of lined up where I want to be. Now number 2 is the black color. So now when I start to sew, I'm now going to be following the black line in this block. Put my presser foot down, make sure everything is straight, flat, ready to go. Follow down to the next corner. And I actually want to end in the corner if I can. Take a look. Where am I going next? I'm actually going straight across, etc., etc. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this off camera. So I have, I don't even know if you can, yeah. I'm on number 2 right now, okay? I'm going to do this 9 patch. It flows into the next 9 patch, and then it flows up to this last 9 patch. And then I'm actually going to finish the last 2 4 patches the same way I did the first one that you all saw. So I'm going to get this done off camera, and I will see y'all very soon. I hope you enjoy quilting. Even these are just plain and simple. They are just quilting suggestions. You can do whatever you want. That's the beauty behind this art, is that it's whatever your creative bug wants to do. So I'm going to get this done, and I'll see y'all in just a bit. Okay, so I got this all quilted using that pattern, that quilting pattern that I gave in the pattern online. If you're interested in making these easy springtime placemats, I'll put a link down below, not only on the screen here, but in the description, so that you can click on that and get your pattern today. But your homework this week is getting it quilted, right? And then next week, we're going to square it off, and we're going to get the binding on, and then we're done. I mean, and then it's time to celebrate, because we have a finished project and not a UFO or unfinished object. So, yay. I hope this was helpful. If you like this video, please like this video, share it with your friends, go ahead and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I will see you today on Wednesday. Every time a video drops, I do a Facebook Live at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on our Facebook page. Also, the link will be down below, but we will be there at 3 p.m. Eastern Time for a live Q&A and anything else that I may think that I needed to talk about. It usually extends a little bit because there's always something, right, that I might have thought of after I did the video. So enjoy this. Enjoy the process of quilting. And I'll see you today at 3 p.m. and then I'll see you again next week, squaring and binding. But until then, stay healthy. And I seriously hope that you are continuously inspired, productive, and joyful, and you never stop making those dreams in quilting come true. Love y'all. See y'all soon.